guys, it's Sophie. So I wanted to make a video today talking about the Booker Prize 2019. The list came out, the long list came out like in the midst of our moving, so I wasn't able to jump up and do a reaction video straight away. But I'd already read 4 of the long list books on the day it came out, and I've read another since. So what I thought I'd do is just like show you quickly the ones I've read and broadly my thoughts on them, not like full length reviews, but just kind of what I'm feeling toward them, and then I'll show you the ones I have I already own that I want to read that are on the list, and I'll talk through the ones I haven't bought and which ones are my like priority reads and which ones am I not expecting that I will enjoy as much. Yeah, so I'll start with the ones that I've finished. So the first one that I finished is Lanny by Max Porter. This is the story of a strange young boy who lives in this rural community. And it's rural, but it's also like quite well connected. It's not far outside of London. There's a sense that the family growing up there, the parents are distanced from this rural community, and the son is not so, because he's lived there for much longer. So there's this kind of parallel between these two lives the parent and the child are living in. I would kind of class this as a thriller / rural horror, and the boy, who's very strange, sort of interacts with or comes together with this figure called Dead Papa Toothwort, who is I think kind of a bit like a Green Man type myth, basically this ghosty ghouly thing that lives in this rural village. I don't think I enjoy Max Porter as much as lots of other people do. I like his books and I enjoy them when I'm reading them, but I don't have that like all-consuming, this is absolutely amazing, I want to recommend it to absolutely everyone, that I have with some other books. So I did enjoy it, I gave it 4 stars, but it doesn't click personally with me, so this is one I think is good, but I'm not going to champion for my personal winner. And the next one I was sent for review, and I think I did a full length review of that, so I will link this up above. But this is My Sister the Serial Killer by Lincoln Brathwaite, and this is definitely a thriller. This is a book about a pair of sisters, and one of the sisters has just killed the 3rd man in her life, which makes her officially a serial killer. And this book is talking about the relationship between these 2 sisters and what they do for one another, and why they do what they do for one another. I'm glad to see this one here. I think loads of people have been really buzzy about this book and have enjoyed it. It's not one that I am like, again, I'm not like putting it forward for my winner. It's not the one I would want to win, but I am really glad it's here because I think it's really enjoyable and quick, and I think it being on the list will make more people read it, which I think is a really good thing. I know lots of booky people online, like podcast, Twitter, BookTube, we've all been chatting about it a bit, so I think there's some hype there already, but the Booker just brings it up a little bit more. So yeah, there's this one. And then the next one that I have is, I think it was the first book I read this year, and that is The Wall by John Lanchester. This is a book about a version of England where we are under threat by mass immigration, and I use the word kind of threat because they've literally built these massive walls that people guard, which is the wall, and you're required to go and spend a stint of your life on the wall to stop people from coming into the country. It's a story about obviously immigration and sort of about, I think it's kind of about climate change as well, and kind of global pressures. And I read this a little while ago, so you know it's 6 months on that I've read this. I did enjoy it and I liked it when I was reading it. I think the world building was really good. That's probably the bit of this I enjoyed the most, particularly in the latter half of the book. And I can see why this one's here, though I haven't seen this one talked about as much as I have My Sister the Serial Killer or Lanny on BookTube or like Book People. But yeah, it was enjoyable. It was definitely political, but I think, again, it's hard because it's from memory. I felt like it was a little step too far away for me to feel that really like eerie similarity, though at points I felt that. So that's The Wall. Again, not one of the ones I'm personally championing, but I do think this is a good list this year. I do feel like from the ones I've read, I've enjoyed the experience of reading a lot of them. And then the next one I did a full length review on, and that is Lost Children Archive by Valeria Luisili. This was, until recently, my favourite book of the year so far. I loved this book. It begins as a story between a couple who basically work with sound in lots of different ways, and one like archives and hides away sounds, and one builds up pictures using sounds. And they are having this, I guess, this kind of crisis point in their relationship where the husband wants to go and do some meaningful work, is how he's kind of talking about it, and the wife doesn't want to move from where they are, and they decide to take this road trip to sort of travel along America to find out what this meaningful work is and can the relationship last. But one of the main themes of this book is looking at how the experience of Native Americans is kind of portrayed and examined, and this family, one of the things that the father's doing is trying to create a soundscape of this particular group of people who the tribe that they're living in is reducing in size, and they're worried that it won't be around for much longer, and he wants to kind of capture what is there but also what was there before, what the world might have sounded like. It's full of little twisty tiny things. I'll link the full review because I will speak about it much more eloquently there than I will now, I expect. I'm a little bit rusty. It's been nearly a month since I've filmed anything new, so I'm just trying to get back in the hang of it. But The Lost Children Archive is one I would not be mad if it won at all. I really enjoyed it, and I think you guys would like it too. And the next one that I read overtook Lost Children Archive on my favourite books of the year. So the Man Booker Longlist so far has 2 of my favourite books that I've read, which is awesome, that never happens. And this one is Girl, Woman, Other. If you've watched my most recent reading vlog, I was reading this throughout it, and I just think this book is so artful and wonderful, and this is currently my lead one to win. This book is looking at the lives of, I think it's 12 different black women at different stages in British history, and the writing is just incredible. Like, you go into these stories, and the book's quite long, but because that's 12 different characters or people in here, it doesn't really feel like, it shouldn't feel like, it does feel like, it shouldn't feel like you've had a novel length time with them, but her writing's just so incredible that you sink straight in and you feel like you could have read a story this long just about those characters. It's just more than vignettes, it's these parcels of life and how they will intertwine, and it was just absolutely beautiful. I now want to read anything else by her, and yeah, I think it's a brilliant book, and I would very much recommend reading it. And then I have 2 books that are on the long list that I own but I've not yet read, and the first one of those is 10 minutes 38 seconds in this strange world by Elif Shafak. I read, I can't remember what book of hers it was I read one of her books when I was in Turkey. She's a Turkish author who writes in Turkish and in English, and this is her new one. This is about a woman who dies, and as her brain is dying, so as her body's shutting down, she has these 10 minutes 38 seconds where she's recalling the whole of her life, and you get this image of who she was, and I've heard that it's very rich in detail and kind of brings Istanbul to life, and I really liked her writing before. I thought it was brilliant, so this is a really good excuse to get around to another one of her books, and I've heard Simon talk about this one on his channel and say he's really liked it, so I think this will be the one I get to when I finish my current read, which is the next one I'm going to show you. So easily the longest one on the list, I think, is Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellman, and this is my current read. I am 88 pages in, I've just been reading it this morning, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's as stream of consciousness as you can get. There's a very short bit at the beginning which has full stops and sentences, but then I think the remainder of it, beyond the first 5 pages, is just all 8 run-on sentences, which actually make the book read much faster than it is width-wise. And yeah, it's just kind of talking about what it's like to live today in America and what that feels like, and what it feels like to be a mother and to have those duties. And so far I'm just really enjoying it and kind of slightly powering through it. So when I finish filming this now, I'm going to sit down on my sofa with a cup of tea and just go through a little bit more of it. Though it's slightly funny that I've chosen the biggest book that I possibly could have chosen to read first, seeing as I read Man Booker books at pace. I try and read them all before the shortlist comes out. But it's not till September, so I think if I do this one first, I might be in with a bit of a shot. And I showed you guys in my bookshelf tour that my TBR is really small, so I've only got those 2 books there, and then I have Enigma Variations by Andrew Ackman, and another huge one, which is The Catholic School. But so I don't have a huge TBR that makes me feel like I'm going to deviate too much. Even if I read the Andrea Ackerman, like in totality, that might only take me like a few days, and the Catholic school I'm not going to race my way through anyway, so I feel like I can give some time to Duck's New Report first, and then hopefully I won't feel like I can't achieve it toward the end. Yeah, so those are the ones I own and have not yet finished or started in the case of one. So I'm just looking down the list on my phone, and the first one that I'd added to my Goodreads list is So I'm just looking at my phone, and the first one that I have on my list is Frankenstein by Jeanette Winterson, and I actually picked this one up when it came out and nearly got it, but I was a little bit unsure because it's a retelling of Frankenstein, and I think it's the doctor in it who's dealing with AI maybe, but they are trans, and I was a little bit hesitant about picking it up until I'd heard something from people who are trans saying either this is good representation or this is bad, and I was especially worried because like Frankenstein is like a monster story, and I really didn't want to be buying something that was really bad, so I hadn't picked that one up yet. I still haven't seen that perspective from someone who's trans, but I will look for that before I pick that one up. But it is one I'm interested in. I just need to reassure myself before I buy it. The next one on the list is Quixote by Salman Rushdie, and this is probably one I'm not going to read, or I might read toward the end. Partly because it's a retelling and I haven't read the original, and partly because I've tried to read Salman Rushdie a few times before and I've never gotten on with their writing. So it's kind of a bit of a double hitter in terms of it's not really one I'm interested in. If I like powered through all the other books on the list and I had loads of time, maybe I would pick it up and give it a go, but I'm not expecting to love it, so I think that one is staying on my list on Goodreads for a minute or two. And the next one on the list is another one I'm unsure of, and that is An Orchestra of Minorities by Chidozie Abiboma. Yeah, and this is an author that I haven't read before but that I've heard other people talk about before. I think I'm just kind of a little bit put off by the fact it's like there's a spirit of a young poultry farmer inside someone, and I'm a little bit like, I just don't know if I'm up for that. I don't know how long this one is either. Okay, so it's like nearly a 500-page book. I think it's basically like an epic love story between these two people who are of different classes, and I think it's a retelling of the Odyssey, so it's one I might get to. It's just a longer one and it doesn't immediately strike like my interest when I read about it, so it's not one I'm going to rush off and get, but the similar with the Salman Rushdie, if I get closer to the end and I have loads of time, I may well pick them up, but we'll see. And the next one I definitely want to pick up, and that is The Man Who Saw Everything by Deborah Levy. I've read Deborah Levy, I've read I think 2 of her non-fiction books and 2 of her fiction, and I've seen her write about femininity and girls and sisters and mothers through that, but I haven't seen her talk about men, and this book is more of a male story, and I think that's really interesting, particularly because I think it's the thing that makes her other book strong is the female relationship, so I wonder how well she'll be able to do this more male-centric storyline. So that's one I'm really intrigued to read, and I will definitely pick up when I can. And then the next one is one I keep thinking of but I'm not overly keen on, so again we'll see. There's quite a few that I've loved on this list and a few I'm like, So we'll see, we'll just see. I'm just not going to put any expectations up. I'm going to read the ones I'm really interested in first, and then if I want to read the others later I can. But that's Night Boat to Tangier by Kevin Barry. And the reason why I'm not really that into it is it sounds like it's just a long conversation just between 2 men sitting waiting to deal drugs, and that's not something that immediately strikes in me like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Though sometimes I do like the grittier stories about men rather than like just professors having affairs or whatever, so it might be one I get to, and I've been thinking about it a lot. When I think about the list, that's the book that keeps coming up in my head, so we will see. I think I'm more likely to read that one than I am the Salman Rushdie or An Orchestra of Minorities as the one I read when I've read all the ones I want to read first. And then the last one on the list is The Testaments by Margaret Atwood, which is the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. I have read The Handmaid's Tale, but I read it a little while ago and I haven't watched the TV series, which is again why this one isn't so high up on my list as some of the others are. But I think I really will read it. I might just, again, hold off on it for a minute or two. I might watch, I haven't watched it yet, the series, so that I know the story of The Handmaid's Tale a little bit better, because I think don't know if I read it probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago maybe, and I feel like it's probably going to do better if you know this, if you can remember the first story, which I'm not sure I could, besides like major plot points. So yeah, the ones I'm definitely going to get to next will be Frankenstein as soon as I just check it out, the Deborah Levy, and probably the Testaments, but I think the TV series might be a good way for me to do that, and I quite like having something to watch in my work nights sometimes. Just like an hour of TV and then a couple hours of reading can be really nice. Yeah, so those are the Man Booker books for the Booker books. Those are the Booker books for 2019. It's going to take me a minute or two to get my head around that. What ones are you excited for? Have you read any of them? Is there any that you think shouldn't be there, or you're really glad are there? Like, I'm thrilled that Girl, Woman, Other's there. Yeah, hopefully you're enjoying it so far, and I do think there's some really good ones on this list. I think there's definitely some books in here I've really enjoyed and have been trying to shout about, so I'm like, yes, they'll be shouted about more. And I'm excited to get to the ones that I'm you know, the ones I'm more hyped for at the minute, and then see how I do with the rest. I don't know yet whether I will be doing like a review for every book I read like I normally do, but leave me comments and say if that's something you're interested in or not. Some people really like them, some people don't find them that interesting, and I'd rather know than spend the time doing it if that's not what you're up to or you're into. I could equally well do like a wrap up talking about like 2 or 3 in a go rather than whole review videos, or maybe I do like a shortlist wrap up and talk about the ones on the shortlist. Just tell me what you'd like. I think that'd be good. Talk to me about what you would like to see in terms of Booker content this year. But I'm gonna have to like write it by hand or something. So I'll see you guys again soon in my next video. Look after yourselves until then. Bye.